TellyCast, the TV industry news review.
Hi, I'm Justin Crosby, and welcome to this week's TellyCast. On this week's show, my guests are Luke Hyams, Head of Originals for YouTube in EMEA, and Jonathan Skogmo, Founder and CEO at Jukin Media. And as the UK heads into another lockdown, K7 Media's Girts Licis looks at the future for live events in the TV industry. It's all coming up on this week's TellyCast. This year, COVID-19 has changed the game for many TV production businesses. Production interrupted, physical markets gone. So now it's more critical than ever to build your business and sell your shows to broadcasters and streaming platforms around the world. But how do you stand out from the crowd when everything is virtual? And how can you hire the best PR consultants to announce your news when you can't afford the retainer? Well, we've created the solution, PRBuzz.tv. PRBuzz.tv is the fast, hassle-free and effective news service from Boom PR to get the content industry talking about you. No PR retainer, no inexperienced PRs assigned to your account who don't get your business. Just a flexible, premium press release service to suit your budget, delivered by experienced professionals and former TV journalists who understand the content industry, the media, and what makes a news story. To find out more, go to our website at prbuzz.tv and book a free Zoom consultation. And let's help you build your business and sell more content. So on this week's show, I'm delighted to welcome Luke Hyams and Jonathan Skogmo. Luke is Head of Originals for YouTube in EMEA, where he oversees all original programming across the region. At YouTube, he's been responsible for a wide range of scripted and unscripted programming, from Terms and Conditions and How to Be Bazinga to Together We Rise. Before joining the Google-owned video platform, Luke was Director of Global Content at the Walt Disney Company, where he worked with the world's best digital creators and legacy Disney brands to create original digital franchises for a variety of platforms. Luke has spent time in Asia partnering with brands to produce web series and micro-movies, and before that worked as a writer and director, creating award-winning interactive series including Dubplate Drama and Kate Modern, for which he earned the Broadcast Press Guild Award for Innovation. And Jonathan is founder and CEO of Jukin Media, the world's first media company that's powered entirely by user-generated video content. He oversees Jukin's licensing business, original productions, marketing, creative, development, and culture. Under his leadership, the company has grown to more than 220 employees, with offices in Los Angeles, New York, London, and New Delhi. With more than a decade of industry experience, Jonathan has produced more than 200 hours of linear TV programming for networks such as Fox, MTV, Discovery, True TV, and Channel 5. So welcome to the show, Luke and Jonathan. How are you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
Hey, Justin. Thanks for having me.
Jonathan, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about Jukin for those who aren't familiar with the digital side of life.
Yeah, so Jukin Media is a next-generation media company, and everything we do is powered by user-generated content. And user-generated content are often videos shot on drones, cell phones, mobile devices, of everyday occurrences. Sometimes it's comedic, sometimes it's inspirational, sometimes it's a caught-on-camera moment, where we find a lot of value in these really great videos that everyday people are creating. And we've really built a company that powers these type of videos.
When did you set the business up?
I started the business around 2010. It's hard for me to put an exact date on it, but it was as scrappy as a startup as one can get.
To a certain extent, it must have been Wild West back then, because user-generated content and the concept of making money out of this sort of content. I mean, you must have written the rules on a lot of this stuff.
Well, I've certainly seen the evolution of user-generated content. I don't think that many people can say they spent their whole career around this type of videos. I think some people have labeled me the king, but to give a quick story, I've really seen it evolve when it came from a very analog system of America's Funniest Home Videos, or your version, You've Been Framed, of people
Yeah.
sending, their VHS tapes in. And my job, one of my first jobs in Hollywood, was to go pick up those VHS tapes from a PO box that people would send in for a chance to be on the show.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and so I had to clear and source all that video content. And so I really seen it rise from this analog to this digital mobile world that we're living in today.
From the times when people had to have one of those huge VHS cameras or whatever, everybody's now got a phone. Everybody's in the moment, and everybody's a journalist to a certain extent.
Absolutely, I think that's what makes this content so great. It's very authentic. It's organic. You can't remanufacture some of these moments, which is what we love at Jukin.
I talked in the intro about a few different aspects of your business. Presumably, the licensing side is the biggest component of your business, or can you give us a bit of a bit of clarity about all the different divisions of your business? Because you've got 220 employees, right, across 3 or 4 offices.
That's right. We have 220 employees, headquartered in Los Angeles, office in New York, office in London, office in New Delhi, then a bunch of other people scattered around the world. We built some really great technology to help us find these really great videos that I've been talking about. We applied that with some methodology, and essentially is we're finding these videos before anyone has seen them before, so we can acquire the rights from these individual video owners, and they get to participate in cash. And we paid over $25 million to everyday video owners. And we really, I believe, created the market for this type of content, where you talk about the Wild West. It certainly was the Wild West when I first started. Nobody took these rights seriously. Nobody took user-generated content seriously. And I'm proud to say that this content is powering this really great media company that we have today. You talk about the licensing business. That's certainly our legacy business and what the company was first based on, because I used to produce a lot of these kind of talk shows and clip shows that use user-generated content. So a lot of the You've Been Framed or America Funniest Home Videos, those derivative versions I helped produce. And I really saw the value of this content, particularly around the time when online video and YouTube started launching. Obviously, the proliferation of mobile devices, the way we create content, the way we share content. So I really kind of saw that evolve over time. And you talk about the licensing business. Once we get these really great assets, they go up on this platform. Think of it as like a Getty Images or for viral videos or user-generated content, where we have our own platform, our own marketplace, where we license our content to every morning show, news show, talk show, clip show around the world. We work with some of the biggest publishers, digital publishers and news publishers of this content. And we also work a lot with brands and advertising agencies to use this content for their television campaigns or for their digital campaigns.
So in terms of splitting that down, the broadcast industry, what sort of percentage would be licensing into broadcast versus brands and the other bucket as well?
If I had to guess just off the top of my head, it's probably, I would say 50 on the entertainment side. So that would be the talk shows, clip shows around the world. I would say 35% on the advertising brand side, and that steadily rises every year. And then about 15%, I would say, on the publishing side.
Actually, that's probably indicative of the budget availability within those industries and how they're changing, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And it's interesting to see on the advertising side, 6-7 years ago, there wasn't a brand that would touch user-generated content.
Now it's all about, getting real, isn't it? It's about authenticity and about connecting with individuals rather than, a huge glossy Super Bowl ad. I mean, you probably see user-generated content in Super Bowl ads now, right?
We've licensed our content for Super Bowl ads. We just licensed our content for some ads in the World Series. We've done stuff for the Oscars. It's amazing. There's probably more user-generated campaigns than ever before. And you're absolutely right. People want that authenticity. People want, real people using their products and services. And so brands want to jump in that conversation. So they'll hire us to find these videos of people using their products and services. And it's a great win for everybody.
Going back to something you said earlier on about you have teams identifying that user-generated content that's going to work for licensing. I mean, how do you find it from the billions of videos that are out there and hundreds of millions that are uploaded every day? How do you find them? Have you got a proprietary technology that you've developed, or is it just literally a case of, it's about having human bloodhounds, if you like, to go out there that find the right clips?
Like I said, it's a great question. Like I said, I think it's really when the methodology meets technology. So we have a know-how team that's been doing this for a long time. So a lot of institutional knowledge into what content works, how we license, how do we source that content, because you can find a video anywhere on the internet, but it's really about finding the right video that is owned by the right person. And sourcing that content. And so we have to be super diligent, making sure that we're having the right video owner at the end of the day. Otherwise, anybody can just find the content because there's so many different video platforms out there right now. So that's kind of really the methodology, the institutional knowledge, and be first movers. And I think, creating the market. That's our advantage on the methodology side. I think on the technology side is that we've spent millions of dollars over the years iterating our proprietary technology. Think of it as a giant filter we've put on the internet videos, and it's really kicking out videos that don't meet a certain criteria. If a video is less than a certain time length, over a certain time length, if it's a big subscriber account, we don't want big accounts. Again, we're looking for everyday people. We don't want copyrighted music in our videos. So essentially, it's kicking out all these videos. And once it gets down to a certain number of videos, we actually then do put eyes on it, human eyes on that video, which to help us work through this proprietary kind of CRM system that's tracking the video, tracking the viewership of that video, and then how we do these reach out to video owners, which is then done through a manual process.
Tell us some of your most successful genres.
Yeah, so I mean, I touched on a little bit. It is animals, it's pets, it's inspiration, it's comedy. It is that caught on camera moment. I think what's so great about this content, not just it's organic, which we talked about, but also it's very language agnostic. It's universal. I like to say a cute kid is a cute kid anywhere, a cute pet is a cute pet anywhere. A guy getting kicked in the what is funny anywhere. So I like to say an ouch is an ouch in any language.
And an amazing basket that somebody's, thrown a basketball like the length of the stadium or something is always, at a college game is still people are still going to enjoy watching that, even if it's, 5 seconds long.
Absolutely. It goes across every culture, religion, country. It's really amazing to see how much appeal there is to this type of content.
Yeah. I noticed that one of the ones from last year, I think it was, or maybe it was a year before, Chewbacca Mom. Now, Chewbacca Mom was just a mom with a Chewbacca mask that actually made a laughing noise. And it was just such an infectious video that went crazy viral. Off the top of your head, do you know how that's done in terms of YouTube right now?
I don't know how many views off the top of my head on YouTube. I do know at one point on Facebook, it was the most watched live stream video ever, or at least at the time when that video was being recorded, the Chewbacca Mom. And it's just kind of crazy. Exactly. That, again, another example how this cross barriers and it's very universal. Just a woman putting on a Chewbacca mask, it becomes this kind of pop culture moment, this universal icon, this zeitgeist moment that everybody's talking about. I mean, that's what's crazy about these viral moments. It's crazy the mass appeal that it has. We have a trophy case now at the office in LA, and it's that Chewbacca mask is sitting in that trophy case because I believe that one day that mask will be in a museum somewhere.
What sort of revenue can a video like that generate?
Yeah, I think this doesn't happen for every video. And sometimes for our video owners, we will pay an upfront fee, which could be a few $100s to a few $1,000. If they share in that kind of participation, a video like that has earned, I'm not sure about that one, but it has earned into the six figures And this is for a 30-second, usually a 30-second accidental piece of content that we're able to monetize over and over again. We talked about licensing. That's just kind of one of the touch points where we can monetize that content.
So TikTok, I mean, you're having to keep across all of these different video platforms. You talked about Facebook. We're talking to Luke at YouTube, and YouTube is really the platform that must have pretty much kickstarted your business. How about TikTok? Because that's a new entrant into the marketplace, and now it looks like it's a legal business in the US. How's it changed your business in the last few months?
I think it hasn't really changed our business. I'll put it slightly differently. I think it has accelerated our business, particularly during the pandemic. More people were viewing TikTok than ever before. More people were on their mobile phones than ever before. You saw viewership go through the roof. You saw streaming go through the roof. And at the same time, you saw content creation go through the roof, which was pretty amazing. You saw how creative people can be in the confine of their living room or backyard, between dances and reenactments and just funny, really great, funny and creative content. That platform exploded and was perfectly well made for in some ways for this environment that we're living in.
You said that consumption and creation have both gone through the roof. So presumably you've been able to ride the wave of both.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's definitely been more creative content creation than ever before, which is pretty amazing. And there's been demand for that content, particularly on the licensing side for brands. We worked with a handful of Fortune 500 brands during this pandemic, which has been great, as they want a lot of campaigns. We're doing this, we are in this together, and showing whether it's nurses crying, nurses dancing, or people cheering on nurses. We had a lot of that content that was being used in a lot of these campaigns, which I think were very, uplifting and inspirational. And we're proud that we've been able to supply content for that, particularly in an environment where production has been limited, right? You can't go out and do these physical shoots. So I think, brands really needed content. They wanted content that was relevant. They wanted content that was authentic. And so we were a great solution for brands during this time. I think we licensed over 500 videos or something to brands and agencies in I think the month of March through June, which is kind of crazy. So there on the licensing side, business certainly grew. Talked about the viewership grew, content creation I think grew for this type of content. Some of the challenges have been certainly on the advertising as far as CPMs and monetizing that content as brands have pulled back their media spend.
So we've seen the impact that TikTok has had, not just in the US, but around the world. How do you see the future for short form content?
Yeah, like I've alluded before, I think TikTok has accelerated the adoption of it, accelerated the creation of it. I think more people are used to it. More brands want to put their brands in front of this content. So I think it's actually accelerated at 5 years. I think the fact that user-generated content is more mainstream. It's more real. People want to see it. People want to see real people. And like I mentioned before, 6 or so years ago, there wasn't a brand that wanted to be anywhere near UGC or associated with UGC. And I think with the explosion of TikTok, particularly a few weeks ago, I don't know if you guys saw this video, this ocean spray video of the skateboarder. I mean, look at that with Fleetwood Mac. I mean, it drove sales of ocean spray. It made that old Fleetwood Mac song, that great song, Dreams, become the #1 song on iTunes. I mean, if that's not a proof point, I don't know what is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's again, that was another one of those 15 seconds of fame. I can't remember the YouTuber or the TikToker, should I say, that recorded that, but I get the impression that he's done okay out of that video.
Yeah, I think he has. And I think he's had crowdsourcing. I think now he has an agent. I think the only reason he was on a skateboard because his car broke down. I think he was able to afford a new car. It's kind of amazing what the human spirit can do to lift something up. And that was, a 15-second video.
I saw him on a news program, actually, with Mick Fleetwood, and they were both on the line together. And Mick Fleetwood was just saying, thank you so much. And he was just, he couldn't believe his luck, right? I mean, it was, it's extraordinary. Brilliant story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Luke, So YouTube, we've seen a change in tack for YouTube's original strategy in recent months, away from the SVOD model of YouTube Premium, and more towards a traditional free content with ad breaks type model, and also allowing creators to sell subscriptions to their own fans, like bands and what have you. Can you talk us through that, how that change happened and how that's developing right now?
So YouTube Premium is still very much a thing that everybody can subscribe to if they like the kind of extra features of, being able to have YouTube without adverts or listen to YouTube audio with your phone screen off. But, for us as originals, it was a major triumph for us to kind of uncouple from putting our shows behind the premium paywall exclusively to allow us to reach, that enormous 1.9 billion a month individual user base that we have on YouTube. So we're really excited about it because it broadens the reach of our shows. At the same time, though, we're not leaving all our premium subscribers in the dust. A lot of times when we have a special or something, we have additional content that is behind the premium paywall, or if we do an episodic series, sometimes we like to do a thing where you can see the show week to week for free, but if you'd like to binge the whole thing on day one of release, you can subscribe to YouTube Premium and just see it all.
You can still access any content without ads through YouTube Premium, but essentially any originals that we're going to see do have ad breaks now.
Yeah, they do, unless you're a premium subscriber and you don't get the ad break. So, round and round we go. But yeah, we felt like it was the best thing to do to reach as many people as possible with our shows.
Yeah. You must be one of the most in-demand execs when it comes to commissioning. It's like, we've got a great idea. We want to get YouTube involved in our project. Can you talk us through your originals commissioning strategy at the moment in terms of the areas of content that you're looking to acquire and create programming in?
Well, look, I feel like we're in a tremendous position, like you say. YouTube is like a hotbed of creativity where people of all ages with all interests go to express themselves. So what we like to do is we like to look for opportunities where we can partner with people who are smashing it on YouTube to be able to help them amplify what they do, take it to the next level creatively by partnering with them for an original and giving them budget and marketing and that extra bit of support. So for us, it's looking at the data, looking at the comments, understanding what is working on YouTube and what from the UK we feel like we should stick a rocket under and really celebrate.
So in terms of content areas that you're looking to create original YouTube programming in, can you take us through those?
I'm currently commissioning into 4 verticals. Personalities, which is content around YouTube creators or celebrities or public figures who've, for the most part, already built a presence on YouTube. Then there's music. Music is such a huge part of the YouTube story and such a audience driver. So anytime we can collaborate with musicians to do shows for YouTube Originals, that's something we're always into. Learning is kind of, learning and impact. It's more like a sort of specialist factual strain we'd call over here. And it's really just taking the fact that people go on YouTube for a learning experience and trying to build on that to create a sort of premium entertainment experience based around some sort of learning takeaway that they can get out of an entertaining show. And then finally is kids. We have the YouTube Kids app, and we have a commitment to producing original content for kids that will live both on the main YouTube site and will make the app a richer kind of destination for parents to allow their kids to engage with, because they'll know that there's more kind of curated programming there that is a little bit more traditional in some senses, but also feels true to YouTube and what kids like to watch on YouTube.
You mentioned music, and clearly a lot of acts are unable to tour now. They're actually unable to get out. Theaters are unable to host shows. etc. There's a whole swathe of the entertainment community that's not able to perform its art. So have you seen, changes in the way that musicians, for example, and artists have been using YouTube over the last few months since the pandemic hit?
Oh yeah, I mean we've really seen artists embrace live streaming, YouTube in general, but live streaming particularly in a whole big way, just to be able to connect with their audiences and really, give their audience something to get excited about during these, challenging times. At the same time as well, there's some like platform functionalities like the membership thing, where people are able to basically sign up to be, for an artist or a creator and have access to exclusive content ahead of time, and priority in streams and stuff. So that's one way that we've seen them utilizing it. There's a few different platform functionalities, but for the most part, we found it as a great way for artists to just be able to communicate with their audiences and stay relevant.
How about education as well and learning? I mean, in the first lockdown, obviously schools were closed. This we're talking about in the UK, but I know many territories around the world where we have TellyCast listeners, the same was true. Have you seen any changes there? I mean, you've seen a massive uptick in terms of that sort of content on the platform?
The whole way that people have been embracing learning content on YouTube throughout this time is one of the main things I think people will look back at as a big shift. I mean, the hunger, the sort of the reaction of, I need to know something, and then going to YouTube to find the answer was already something that was very, very well entrenched in audience minds. But now the kind of extended learning that you see with a lot of young people and parents using longer form content to really engage with, like they would a lesson or a teacher, that has been something that's been, quite prevalent throughout this time, and something that we're really happy about at YouTube.
The overall growth of the time that we're consuming YouTube has gone up as well, presumably.
Yes, I believe that that's what the statistics say. Because YouTube has such a breadth of content, it just really feels like it's been a place that a lot of people turn to for a kind of unique viewing experience, more so now than ever. And I think, for us, as far as the originals go, we have had some really positive results with some of the shows that we've launched both here and around the world this year, as a result of the fact that people are basically at home, engaging with the platform a lot more.
Can you take us through a couple of those then, in terms of recent commissions that you've been involved in for YouTube Originals?
Absolutely. So at the end of September, we launched a show that we've been working on for over a year called Together We Rise. And that was a story about two young entrepreneurs who built a music empire through starting a really successful YouTube channel, which started off as Grime Daily and evolved into GRM Daily over the last 10 years. And it really felt like one of those things, like I wasn't a massive basketball fan, but I was able to definitely connect with the story of Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen because it was a great human story. And, even if you're not a fan of this type of music, it's a really well-made documentary that kind of just tells you about, two guys who sort of, for lack of a better term, bumble into something and then manage to go through a hella load of ups and downs to make a huge success out of it. And I feel it's really inspirational and will inspire other young people to sort of, harness these open platforms to start their own thing at the same time. And if you are a fan of the music, it's got an incredible lineup of everybody from Stormzy to So Solid Crew to, H, AJ Tracy, Giggs, Kano Getz, Miss Banks, Stefflon Don. We got like 75 different artists to step forward and talk about not only why this platform was so, the whole GRM Daily platform is so important to them in their careers, but also to go beyond that and really talk about how the UK urban scene has really come into its own since there was this real spirit of unity around GRM Daily and the other YouTube channels that have done so well. So yeah, you can see that on the GRM Daily channel. I definitely advise anybody, even if you're not a fan of the music, to check that one out.
Okay, well, we'll put a link to that in the episode description so everybody can go and have a look at that. Are you still involved in scripted content?
You know, we really feel like the most important thing to focus on is unscripted content that feels a closer relative to the stuff that's really working predominantly on YouTube. And, you know, when we were doing stuff all behind the paywall, we felt very strongly that you had to offer a premium scripted content to be able to, you know, make people feel like their subscription payment for the content was worthwhile. So when we moved in front of the paywall, we kind of changed the focus a bit. That's not to say that I don't have a few secret things in development that we're, you know, thinking about, but really we're not taking actively taking scripted pitches at the moment.
You must be one of the most pitched to executives within the content industry. What is it that you're actually looking for now? Can you be really specific about what it is you're looking to put on YouTube?
You know, we're looking for big ideas. We're looking for ways that we can create huge moments that can get artists, YouTube creators, celebrities together to celebrate, you know, something that's maybe happening on the calendar or an important anniversary or an event in people's lives through YouTube. A great example of this is that last year, my American colleagues created a show that was a reaction to the fact that none of the college graduations were happening and none of the high school graduations. So they made this show called Dear Class of 2020 that was a mix of kind of celebrity commencement speeches, live musical performances, bits and pieces of sketches that really just tried to create an alternative to the many ceremonies that were being missed in the US. And that was a huge success and is a great example of how YouTube can step in with a commission to either accentuate or replace something that's happening in the world. So we have a few things like that we're going to announce soon. Beyond that, and by the way, I just want to be clear, and we're open to more suggestions really of those type of things. Beyond that, you know, a few of the projects we've made this year and stuff that we have coming next year are personality-based documentaries. We really believe that YouTube was founded on personality. You know, so much of the success is because so many people use the platform to just sort of convey their true stories. We want to build on that. We want to do really nice premium docs with, for the most part, with people who have built a following on YouTube, but feel like they're ready to work with us to communicate either an untold chapter of their story or to document the next big challenge they want to do. You know, we really want to have collaborations with people who are willing to open themselves up and really do documentaries that feel like they're, telling a new chapter to their story. We've done a great example of this is a show we launched, I think it was it last week or the week before, very recently anyway, called How to Be Bazinga. Bazinga is a young man who's 1/7 of the YouTube crew, the Sidemen, who are hugely popular. And Bazinga, real name Ethan, he used to be very, very unfit, very overweight, very out of shape, and consequently was very depressed. This, you know, made him very unhappy. He went through a real dark time, which we document in the documentary, and then came to a kind of sort of crux moment where he decided that he should turn his life around through embracing fitness. And we tell the story of how he did just that and aimed to go for the London Marathon. So to get fit to run in the marathon. And what happened, of course, is the London Marathon was postponed. And so the documentary kind of, you know, from one perspective went off the rails in terms of, hey, it was just going to be about this guy's transformation in the marathon. But actually the fact that it ended up, you know, 2020 being 2020 meant that we were able to go on a much richer journey that saw him, you know, really open up about himself in a whole deeper way. So that's How to Be Bazinga. That's on Bazinga's YouTube channel right now. Definitely worth a look. Another one we've done, which is about to launch on the 12th of November, also under the How to Be brand, is How to Be Anne Marie. Anne Marie is a hugely popular pop star, used to be with Rudimental, and we originally commissioned a doc that was going to be about her most sort of active, successful year as a pop star. It was going to see her do big shows and really get out there and take her career to the next level. And actually what we've ended up with is a beautiful portrait of what happens to a pop star when everything stops. And, you know, she was in lockdown. And then when she came out of lockdown, you know, the schedule that she'd had for so long wasn't, it wasn't there anymore. You know, the sort of constant stream of appearances and stuff that she had to do were kind of, you know, not on the rails yet. So we ended up with a really introspective portrait of what happens when, you know, the world of a pop star slows down and she really starts to ask questions about herself. So those are two really interesting documentaries that we've done that actually have been greatly affected in terms of their narrative by the 2020 roller coaster, and they're really good examples of the type of things we want to continue to do.
The three projects you mentioned so far are probably slightly more youth focused. Do you have a demographic in mind in terms of age range that you're looking to appeal to?
I mean, really, shows that appeal to a kind of 18 to 30-year-old audience is our main focus right now. Every now and again, amazing Paul McCartney special ekes through that goes broader than that. But for the most part, it's that sort of 18 to 30 audience. And we want to make sure that we bounce around different audience sectors on YouTube. It's so different to, like, you know, BBC Two or Channel 4 or something where they have a brand and they're going squarely at one audience group. With us at YouTube Originals, you know, for YouTube and normal people who are users, everybody's YouTube experience is different. Mine is different from yours, is different to my mum's, is different to your wife's, is different to the milkman's. And so people are part of lots of different kind of audience groups on YouTube. So we want to have commissions that have the ability to sort of reach a key group of fans, but then because of the quality of the production, maybe spill out and reach some others as well. So that's one of the key things to think of when coming to us, is like, who on YouTube is this going to be targeted to? Because things are so niche and no show is ever a sort of broad one show fits all kind of model.
You mentioned How to Be as a strand that obviously you're building. So you open to suggestions of, I don't know, footballers work within the How to Be strand. Are you looking to build upon that strand and take the inspiration from the two shows you've already done and build it further out?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Football, that would be amazing. It's really just got to be, it really helps if they have a big existing YouTube fan base. I'll just be honest, doing something without a huge YouTube fan base is not really something that we're interested in right now. We like to build on the great hard work that people have done to build their YouTube channels.
And finally, on programming, in terms of format, those How to Be shows, are they short form? Are they multiple episode short form, or are we talking about hour long docs?
I mean, Justin, it is the beauty of YouTube here in a nutshell. Like, I don't know. And B is 60 minutes long, a one-off one piece. We felt that was the best version for that. Bazinga is 3 20-minute episodes. It really is like, what is the best way to tell the story in the most effective way, and what do the audience react to best? Those are the things that we have to think about. So the How to Be thing could be whatever producers tell me it should be next.
And when it comes to promotion of shows, because what's different about YouTube as well, obviously, is the openness of the success of a project, because you can see how many views it's had, which is, as opposed to other platforms, other digital content platforms that don't share those sort of performance stats. In terms of your originals, presumably the YouTube machine helps to promote those through various means as well within the YouTube and Google infrastructure. I mean, if you have a show if you commission a show from a producer, it's a fantastic show. you can bring things to bear from Google and YouTube to help deliver the audience as well, rather than it just existing on an isolated channel.
I wish it was that simple. Yes, there are lots of ways that we can promote the shows on platform. No, we at YouTube Originals are not in control of any of those. So we really have to be able to produce things that sort of inspire the wider team at Google, the wider team at YouTube, to get them excited about it so we can capitalize on those resources. And how we do that is by making cracking shows that, you know, show the best of YouTube. So there's a real argument of why we need to promote on platform. So yeah, there are lots of ways, but I wish I controlled them all. And right now, you know, I really just make programs.
The other thing about YouTube is obviously there are communities existing around content, and interaction with creators is what sets it apart, really. So, you know, that must be presumably another measure of success, not only the number of views that a show achieves, but also the interactions, the comments, the likes, etc., the amount of interaction that the audience has with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's like one of the best things about doing a show on YouTube is that you get just that real honest, you know, feedback, direct feedback from people who, you know, for the most part have their shielded identities and will be completely honest with you. And, you know, for the most part, we find that is one of the great joys of making shows for the platform. And same for the producers we work with.
So over the past few months, we've seen the spectacular rise of TikTok in the short form content space, and we've seen the equally spectacular failure of Quibi. So two, you know, multi-billion-dollar platforms there, suffering very differing fates. So, I mean, what's your view on Quibi, for example, in terms of, you know, something that kind of held so much promise, or did it? Was it always doomed to fail?
Well, it's tough, man, because like I know a lot of really great people that went to work there and really believed in it, and you know, they put their hearts and souls into, a lot of producers put their hearts and souls into some you know, really exciting shows for that platform. So it's sad to see it go. It's sad at this time, especially, to see, you know, brilliant people back in the job market, you know. So I feel, you know, that I subscribed, but then I just, you know, there's just already so many different things on my phone that show me things that I'm interested in. I you know, there's a number of different ways you can break it down, but ultimately it came down to me was just not being able to watch any of the stuff on the living room. I feel like that would have been you know, it would have made it a different experience for me personally, and in how I connected with Quibi. I mean, there's so much to be said about this one. A guy I know called Sander Saar, he's a guy I used to work with at Disney. He's a brilliant YouTuber. He has an amazing video where he just breaks down the whole thing, right from the sort of proposition of Silicon Valley meets Hollywood. What does that actually mean? I advise anyone who's interested in the Quibi debate to sort of take a look at that. But, you know, Justin, ultimately, I think it's a sad thing for all the people that work there and work so hard. And I'm surprised they gave up so easily, but the numbers must have been really shocking.
Yeah. Well, you're the only subscriber that I've spoken to, actually. I mean, I went in for the free trial. I think the same day that I downloaded it, I had a quick looked around for, you know, anything that would interest me, and then put a note in my diary for when to cancel the trial. You know, that was my first sort of interaction with Quibi, and you know, I did try with a couple of the shows, but just also the idea of it not being shareable, not being socially shareable was, to me, was extraordinary, when they were presumably aiming at the same audience, or a very similar audience to YouTube, that 18 to 34, 35 audience.
You know, the whole convention of sharing is so important to everything we do at YouTube. Like, honestly, if something moves you emotionally, today, if a piece of content, a piece of entertainment really, connects with you, you engage with it. And, the main engagement is to share it with your friends and tell people about it. So to not have that function was a miss. I mean, I did enjoy the show they did, Music And, which was, great documentary. I saw one episode about a lighting director and his relationship with one of the big DJs. I can't remember who. And who can forget that show about renovating houses where grisly murders have happened previously? I mean, come on, guys. That will surely go down in history.
Yeah, and the Sex Doll show as well. I can't remember the name of that one, but Anna Kendrick. I did enjoy that. Maybe we'll see that somewhere else. Maybe we'll see it on YouTube in a different format. You never know.
I mean, who knows, man? Those shows, the deals that they had with the producers means that those shows will likely live again or find new distribution. So, yeah. So hopefully there'll be some formerly Quibi classics that find new homes elsewhere.
And so what do you think the future holds for short form? We've obviously seen TikTok enter the market, as I mentioned earlier on. Seems to me that it's in rude health.
Short form is wildly popular. It's a bigger part of everybody's lives as long form. I think Quibi were going for a mid form thing, which, I didn't see that there was any kind of direct appetite for a kind of mid form format personally out there. I think there's a sort of short form habit, with what's going on TikTok and, what's going to happen with YouTube Shorts soon and the IGTV. And I feel that there's a sort of longer format living room thing where you get Netflix, Amazon Prime. That middle ground Quibi were doing, I'm not quite sure there was a big market need for that. But short form definitely, is on the rise. And I think, we're still probably, quite early on in the TikTok story.
So we've talked about your licensing business, Jonathan. What about the other divisions of Jukin and how else you make money?
Yeah, so the business and the infrastructure is really broken down in two ways. We talked about the licensing business is how we license our content to others. And then the other side of our business is how we take these really great videos and assets and we create stories and original stories and we create original brands. And so we've taken these really great videos and we've created these really great content brands that are socially distributed, that live on the platforms of Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. These are consumer-facing brands that are verticalized in different verticals. And so we have our pet brand, which is called the Pet Collective. We have our comedy brand called Fail Army. We have our inspirational brand called People Are Awesome. Between our 5 owned and operated brands that we program and publish on our social platforms, we have about 230 million fans. We do nearly 3 billion views a month. So we're getting an incredible scale of viewership and followers on these platforms. And we're publishing our individual videos. We're publishing montages, and we're also publishing original content that we've sold into the Facebook Watches of the world, that we sold into traditional television shows. Fail Army is a TV show that's aired in 200 markets around the world. We produce 140 half-hour individual television episodes. It's spun off into a primetime television show for here in the UK on Channel 5. We sold it into Fox in the US. And so really, we're taking these really great assets and telling, longer stories with them, all the way up to streaming. And now we're heavily invested in streaming. We were a first mover to Pluto. We're a first mover to Samsung Plus, and we're creating, these AVOD channels that are, essentially we're running 24/7 cable networks.
One of the many things that I've learned from having the honor of working with Sam Balcroft for a number of years was the importance of monetizing, building multiple revenue streams around content is absolutely key. And that's really what's made digital work, right?
Well, I think if you're just in the content game of just having one outlet, you're in a lot of trouble, particularly if you don't own the IP. And I think it's so important to own the IP. And I think the lifeblood of any media company, whether you're Warner Brothers, your Disney, your Sony is the ownership of that IP. And in our case, our ownership are these individual videos and these brands.
And being able to build your own brands and then spinning them out onto multiple platforms.
Absolutely.
It's a fascinating market. So now it's the time in the show where we get to discuss our guest's story of the week, where they highlight the key news stories that's caught their eye in the TV industry over the last few days. Luke, what's your story of the week?
I think the story of the week that I'd love to talk about, Justin, is just what we're living through right now in terms of the fact that we are now in a second lockdown here in the United Kingdom. And I think, it's really important for us and for the listeners, for us to just check in on what that means for production here in the UK.
And not only in the UK, obviously, we've got very many listeners in France and many other territories around the world that are also in a similar lockdown situation.
I think, Justin, as well, it's like probably not just about production as well. I think it's also like, what does it mean for creativity? I think is a broader thing than just production too.
I started this podcast right at the beginning of Lockdown 1. It sounds like, the movie Lockdown 1, Lockdown 2. But what's really interesting is that the tools that we have at our disposal right now from home, when we are locked down at home, we've still got that ability to be creative. And with a camera and a laptop, you can do some amazing things, right? And share them with the world. And I think, what we have seen is bursts of different types of creativity that are almost forced upon us, or it's an outlet that we find that we can use. So I'm hoping that there's going to be some real positive creative developments through the very action of us being locked down.
I think that's absolutely right. I think it's a great opportunity for people to have maybe a little bit more focus on some of the creative projects they're working on. The technology is there to be able to share those with the world. I'd say it was probably a bit of a stretch to say that everybody were about to go into a cocoon and some amazing creative butterflies are going to come out the other end. But I do kind of feel that in a way. I felt like I certainly was able to really sort of up the focus of the stuff we were doing in the first lockdown. And I feel like, I saw that from a lot of other people and even beyond the industry, although it is really frustrating to spend so much time as I am right now in the back bedroom. I do feel that I did see a lot of people really, engage in some self-improvement, particularly with fitness and stuff, that maybe if they had access to Wetherspoons and Nando's, they would be able to do so in quite the same way.
On that note, actually, we're going to be having a few little mental health sections going forward on TellyCast over the next few weeks. So we're going to be just thinking just a little bit for a few minutes each show, just about looking after each other and ourselves and our minds and all the rest of it. I think that's important for us to spend a few minutes every week maybe doing that, as we're not allowed to go out to the gym and exercise and do all of those things that we probably prefer to do, go and play football or whatever it is. I think it's important for us to look after ourselves. Jonathan, what's caught your eye?
So I think there was some really big news that just dropped a few weeks ago is Quibi. Since we're talking a lot about short form video, obviously this is a platform that was focused on short form video, focused on mobile.
Yeah, it's got to be the biggest disaster in the digital content industry for the last decade, surely.
Well, certainly I'm an advocate for short form video, advocate for the digital industry. And so I never want to see a platform fail, but the short-lived life, it might go down history as being, one of the big or shortest failures ever in the space. That being said, it was, run by some of the biggest and smartest people in the industry, media moguls. It was backed up by some really smart strategic capital, not just any type of capital, but from some of the biggest folks in Hollywood. It had some of the biggest stars in Hollywood creating this content. Everyone from Steven Spielberg to some of the biggest stars starring in this content. And so it had, if you were stacking the deck, you were stacking the deck in the favor to win the hand right here.
The more that I heard about it as it developed and got closer and closer to launch, the less convinced I became. I mean, okay, it's easy to look in hindsight. Obviously, the pandemic did have a huge effect on it because of the occasionality that it was designed for, i.e., everybody sitting on the tube or on the bus or getting to the office and using those 30 minutes of time to consume content. But the shareability or the lack of it being shareable, socially shareable content, surely that was the biggest impediment to its success.
Well, that's certainly a critique that a lot of people are having. How does it not have the basic shareable features that just about any other short form video platform has? Certainly, a lot of folks have been commenting on that. It's interesting. I don't know what the right answer is. I just know I would have done it slightly differently. And I think when you have that type of star power in the room and that star power backing you up, you start maybe thinking that you could do no wrong and that people are just going to come there and be on the platform with all that star power. And I don't think that was the case. I think people were curious to check it out, but I don't know if it was a need in the market. You talk about the pandemic could be affecting the platform, but we just talked about TikTok, how the pandemic actually, I think, accelerated TikTok and accelerated their growth and viewership. I think launching it during a pandemic, it sure might have had some negative effects on the platform and stunted the growth. But I do think if they would have tested the market and iterated on the platform, tested what features people want, surveyed their audience, I think you would be hearing there'd be a much different story than being one of the biggest, fastest failures in Hollywood. I think it would have been much different. I don't think they had to necessarily have all that star power right out of the gate.
You, having built Jukin from scratch within, digital bite-sized shareable content, you must have tested and learnt on the job, right? This is a new frontier, and you've tested, seen what worked, what doesn't work, and you're able to learn as you go along and write the playbook as you develop. I mean, it seems like it was a multi-billion-dollar bet with no research or no insight into what 18 to 24 or 18 to 34-year-olds really want.
Yeah, I think for us is, one of our advantages, our competitive advantages out there, that we've raised very little capital. We haven't any money that we do spend to invest in the company is just coming from cash flow. It's not coming from outside investors. So we have to be so careful and cautious and strategic in what we invest in. Because if we launch something that fails and we put all of our cards or all of our chips on the table, it's going to be the end of the company. And so because I think we do have a limited amount of capital, we have a limited amount of resources, we've used that to our competitive advantage. I don't think our company would be successful if we raised $100 million out of the gate. I really don't, because I think money doesn't solve all your problems. It's really about testing. It's really about iterating. It's really, I think, being a startup is having that minimum viable product mindset. Those are the companies that succeed. And for I think Quibi going out and trying to hit a home run right out of the gate was the death right as soon as they stepped up to the plate. They tried competing with Netflix. Netflix has been in business for 20 years. YouTube has been in business for 15 years, owned by the biggest tech company, most innovative tech company, Google in the world. So to say you can compete with those folks right out of the gate and not launch something small, not launching something that you could test and iterate from, I think that was their biggest mistake.
Lack of resources keeps you creative, keeps you on your toes.
Forces you to be creative. Yeah, absolutely. Forces you not to spend money that you can't afford. What we do is we test new programming in front of our audience every single day, and we iterate from that.
And now it's time for my guests to nominate their hero of the week and who or what they want to tell to get in the bin. So, Jonathan, who's your hero of the week?
I'll keep it relevant, and I think Sean Connery is my hero of the week. One of the greatest actors of all time, the original James Bond. I don't think you get much of a bigger hero than that.
Absolutely. I mean, he was 90. I mean, that's the example of a life well lived, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, he went out on top and retired when he had enough. And I have a lot of respect for that.
And Luke, who's your hero of the week?
My hero of the week, or even hero of the year, is Munya Chawawa. Now, this is a guy who, if you're not familiar with him, Munyachawwa. Put that in the search engine, and the words after him that will pop up will be things like Priti Patel, Lockdown 2, Chipmunk Stormzy feud. This guy is so incredibly creative. He makes parody spoof videos, songs connected to the events of the day. But what's so incredible about this is he's almost as fast as BBC News at this stage. He moves so incredibly quickly, to basically riff off things that are going on in real life. There was a scandal about a sort of very, very distasteful workout regime that was being used in a British gym chain. 12 hours later, he had an amazing song and a video taking the pee out of that. There was a moment when Skepta, for some inexplicable reason, thought it'd be a good idea to post a picture on his socials of Priti Patel. We still don't know why, but immediately he made a cover of one of Skepta's biggest hits, which was basically a diss track of Priti Patel and her attitudes to immigration and the like. The guy is so funny, is so sharp, is such a big talent, and is really using technology, social media, and equipment to really communicate with his audience. It's growing really quickly. He's growing bigger and bigger on YouTube, on Instagram. Everybody check him out, Munya Chawawa. As soon as something big happens in the news, immediately go, give it 12 hours, go to his page, and there'll be a fun song there. So he's somebody definitely to watch out for in the future.
All right. Okay. Well, that's another link that we'll put in there, Luke, and in the description section. And who or what is going in your bin, Luke?
I mean, look, I don't want to sound like Larry David and Victor Meldrew's bastard stepchild, but I have to put iTunes in the bin.
iTunes.
I was there with the first iPad. I have been buying music from the iTunes store from the beginning. I've converted all my CDs into iTunes. I already hate the sound of my own voice as I say this, but this is an app that I've been using since 2001. And there seemed to be a point when Apple Music was introduced where all of a sudden the updates of this app only made it worse and worse every time and made it less intuitive for the users who are still, shock horror, using an MP3 library. Nothing works about it. The cover art is weirdly mixed up. Every time there's an update, all of a sudden the play count information doesn't correspond between iPad and iPhone. I'm going to shut up now at the risk of, basically losing subscribers to your podcast. But honestly, I'm telling you, if anyone's out there who uses iTunes, they'll know what I'm saying. It's just been the biggest frustration, and I just can't go onto Twitter to @Apple and moan about it. So I thought TellyCast would be where I vent this one.
Okay, all right. And presumably you'll be encouraging people to stream music through YouTube, right?
Look, I mean, if iTunes wasn't such a mess, maybe not. But yeah, YouTube Music is pretty good. I'll be honest with you. Just because they have the breadth of stuff, but I don't want to be constantly the company guy. But it is a good app, definitely.
And Jonathan, who or what are you telling to get in the bin?
So I guess being in the U.S., being election day and election week, I think any efforts or attempts to suppress the vote and suppress our democracy here in the U.S., that's who I want to put into the bin. It just really angers me seeing some of the nonsense going on here in the States.
And you're in LA, and are you seeing shops and offices getting boarded up, waiting for the result of this?
Yeah, absolutely. And it brings fears because I saw them boarding up a few months ago during the protests, and the chaos that came here a few months ago. And so I hope we're not going to repeat ourselves. I hope it's going to be peaceful for today and for the rest of the week.
Luke, Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us on the show this week. Really enjoyed chatting to both of you. Jonathan, stay safe over there in Los Angeles. I hope everything goes off without a hitch over the next few days. We'll hopefully see you in person before too long.
Thank you so much for having me. You too. Stay safe.
Hey, thank you, Justin. Keep podding on.
Once again, it's time to head over to Riga to speak to K7 Media's Girts Licis. How are you doing this week, Girts?
Hi, Justin. I'm very well. Hope you all there as well.
We're still here. We're heading into winter and we're all enjoying it and getting on with it and making things work. Well, this week, we're going to be talking about physical events and virtual events. As we come to the end of the year, we've all been doing Zooms for months and months now. And we've all attended, or a lot of us, I think, have probably attended quite a few of these virtual events that have been in place of their physical counterparts. Let's reflect on that and talk about what we've learned, what's worked and maybe what hasn't.
Let's start maybe with a little bit of summarizing the recent MIPCOM, which according to Reed Meadham gathered around 6,000 registered delegates, probably making MIPCOM the largest virtual market so far. We have been talking to many distributors and buyers lately, and the reviews have been pretty mixed. Some noted that arranging of meetings was slow and level of confirmed meetings prior to market was much lower than the physical MIPCOM event. But on the upside, others confirmed they had been able to arrange meetings with clients which they hadn't been able to reach in other ways. It was also reported that due to studios increasingly holding back their IP for their own OTT platforms, as well as their major productions being halted, there were more opportunities arising for international distributors to fill this gap in programming required by third parties, with the role of super indies such as Fremantle, Ben & Jerry's, ITV Studios, BBC Studios, Betafilm, as well as global streamers particularly increasing. HBO Max, Disney Star, IMDb were all mentioned among the most active buyers of finished tape, while US broadcasters had been specifically looking around for international drama. And one common trend was that many participants observed surging interest in co-viewing programming, that is, shows that appeal to the whole family, which bring different generations together. And while the volume of news and deals reported was much lower than normal, I think MIPCOM was still used by many for marketing purposes.
It was interesting. I was chatting with Paul Robinson when we did a MIPCOM preview.
Yeah,
he's a real veteran of MIPCOM and one of the most efficient meeting people that book meetings. And his diary is always crammed all the time that he's there. And he was saying that. Yeah, it was unusual going into MIPCOM that he still had gaps in his diary. But yeah, he was also reporting that some of the people that he was able to meet with were perhaps not the normal type of executive. Some of them more senior that he was able to access. So I think that there's perhaps fewer meetings. Nobody booked their half-hour. However, meetings, over 100 meetings, some people do. Obviously it was a lot less than that. But obviously the platform being open for much longer than the 3 days of MIPCOM obviously also helped with scheduling, and it was maybe a bit more of a relaxed affair. So when looking at the bigger picture of all of these virtual events, is there still a place for them now? What is the point of having activity crammed into 3 or 4 days when we can all now communicate with each other on an ongoing basis?
I think that two main reasons are either when an online market is offering a chance to reach out to new leads and clients in a market where you have few or no contacts at all, or they are not responsive via other channels, or when the conference and events program, whether it's presentations, masterclass, or screenings, fits your needs, your area of interest. But what is also important to note is that many reps I have been talking to stress that online markets require more preparation than physical events in order to make the participation effective, particularly if we are looking at distribution side. Either it's investing in technologies, for instance, securing storage of all your master materials in the cloud and moving them around virtually instead of using Vimeo or other third-party tools, or production of more sophisticated sales materials, like creating a bigger deck, explaining more, putting more of your sales arguments in your assets, reels, and brochure, as you have less opportunity to explain them in person. Some other effective strategies include supplying clients with sufficient information about the new shows prior to a meeting, focusing on new programming and leaving discussions about library titles for post-market communication. Some distributors are also organizing their own virtual upfronts or launching their own companies' festivals for their clients. Others are organizing their own virtual networking events during the online markets. As in markets, it's very much about markets branding, and running your own event can provide much more branding opportunities, for instance.
Well, I guess there's pros and cons, aren't there, when it comes to virtual as well as physical events?
Certainly. At first glance, virtual events are obviously cost effective. You are saving time, travel costs, saving on entertaining clients. Communication online can be less time restrictive. The interaction between sellers and buyers can be more regular. Meetings can be longer with less rush. And given the current environment, the interaction during meetings can be even more personal, as you get to see the counterpart in a different, more personal atmosphere, often in their home environment, which can lead also to closer personal connection. As online events are more cost-effective, particularly in smaller territories, they provide an opportunity to register more team members and allow to split responsibilities more effectively. For instance, while some of the team watch the sessions, others attend the meetings. And at least theoretically, the conference programs can also attract more senior participants, as you already mentioned, as they could not necessarily physically travel to participate due to lack of time. Like, for instance, we saw Ted Sarandos, for instance, giving a keynote at the recent MIPCOM, which he probably couldn't afford to travel to Cannes. On the downside, it's obvious that technical issues can still be more common. Say due to bad internet connectivity, for example. Parties can also get distracted by the kids or their pets at home, leading to less attentive listening, missing bits of important information, and an increased stress. They are less effective in making new contacts, obviously. There are no chance meetings, lack of networking limits, establishing of new personal introductions, initiating new partnerships. And everybody is kind of working on their own. The team building and internal strategizing aspect within sales or acquisitions teams can be missing. There is less exchange of information, fewer opportunities to kind of peek over each other's fences, so to speak. And also time zones can become an obstacle as well. While at a physical event, all participants work in the same time zone, obviously, using virtual meetings can become not too convenient, to say the least, for counterparts scattered across the whole world. Say if an event is taking place in Europe, South Asian participants or Australian participants may need to schedule meetings very, very late at night and so on. And of course, providers of virtual events are still learning how to help the clients to create buzz around their new titles, or just how to make their websites more user-friendly. Participants are still often reporting issues with smooth navigation around the sites, access to conferences, finding useful information, or just lack of providing information in different languages, to name a few.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, if you think about the physical events, then there's a lot of thought and preparation goes into footfall and flow and how people move through physical environments. When you're looking at user experience on a website, that's a different thing altogether. And if you don't get that right, then it can be a really frustrating, time-consuming experience. So which is a completely different skill set that we've not had within markets before. So how do you see the future for physical as well as virtual markets?
I think the future will belong to a mix of fewer physical hybrid events and a growing number of smaller virtual events. While virtually first events will continue to provide a new way of communication and deal making, the major long-established traditional markets are going to turn into hybrid events, offering different tiers for its participants. I think markets such as MIPCOM will cater for both those who decide to attend the market in Cannes physically, and those who would prefer to participate in it virtually. In case of a choice, attendees will increasingly choose to participate in those physical events which are going to take place closer to their homes. And despite the seemingly higher effectiveness in resource management provided by virtual events, we see that there are two main reasons they are not providing the same level of business as the traditional events. First, major traditional events have long established themselves as launchpads for the biggest new shows and formats. And from production schedules to marketing campaigns, year on year, calendars have been attached to certain dates to get the new programs ready for premiere. Without traditional physical events, this cycle is currently losing the focus, and many industry professionals admit that not having such tentpole dates in their annual schedules is making drawing attention to launches more complicated and less of a big event feel. With the importance of deal-making at physical markets diminishing, I think that showcasing programming is going to be their main mission. And secondly, virtual events provide limited possibilities for networking and finding new contacts through personal communication as the main drive for business growth. With growing competition among events, many of them will try to attract participants by offering different promotional bonuses. However, there are certain risks, I think, that it will become a norm for potential participants to increasingly choose those events which offer free participation or at least considerable discounts. It will also become increasingly difficult to prove such expenses internally, as marketing budgets have decreased during the crisis, and particularly those distributors which report staying flat or even increasing their sales in such environment will face the question how to justify increase in spending again. And also companies which have their sales reps placed regionally or even locally in major territories report that this has really paid off during the pandemics, as they have been able to offer ongoing, more personal service. So I think there will be more companies considering a similar strategy, or alternatively, increasingly diverting their budgets towards individual sales trips to territories, as they provide connections in deeper and more personal level than meetings at markets.
So we're seeing a massive disruption when it comes to the events calendar. We know that, but looking at business models of each of these events between now and the end of the year, we've got Content London, usually I had Science Congress, and obviously coming up in the new year, NatP, Real Screen, and then MIP TV again, as well as lots of other much more sort of niche and focused events. So it's obviously going to be a time of real disruption for these events, and maybe some of them we might not see coming through again.
It's good that this time it was you who said that, not me.
Yeah. Well, or maybe we'll see some of these events merging. That's the other option, isn't it? Maybe there's opportunities for some of these events to partner up and grow as they go forward in an effort to survive.
I think that the 2021 still will be in some kind of transfer stage. We will probably settle in the new normality, as we like this expression right now, I think. Probably not before 2022.
Maybe we'll see a massive explosion in events again in 2022. It depends if those who are holding the marketing budgets will feel that there's value in sending their execs around the world. I hope so. We all want to get back together again, don't we? And see each other. And I think, what was interesting is that usually my business, we have a lot of producers attending MIPCOM, and this year we had none. It seemed to me to be much more of a straight distribution and sales market. That was kind of it, without all of the added benefits and layers of activity going on top of that attracts the producers.
Yeah, interesting.
Girts, thank you so much. Until we speak again virtually next week, stay safe, and we'll speak to you in a week's time.
Thank you. Take care.
Well, that's about it for another week's show. As always, thanks for listening. Please remember to rate and subscribe to the show and share it with friends and colleagues. We've set up a new networking group for listeners to TellyCast called TellyCast Community. It's a place to discuss the TV industry issues raised in the show, and we'd also love to hear your suggestions for future show topics and guests. Just search TellyCast Community in the group section on LinkedIn, and we'll see you there. This week's TellyCast was sponsored by PRBuzz.tv. If you want to hear more about our advertising and sponsorship packages, please email justin@boomdialogue.com. That's justin@boomdialogue.com. TellyCast was edited by Ian Chambers. So until next Thursday, see you in the LinkedIn group, and as always, stay safe.